You sit alone in a room that once echoed with voices, laughter, footsteps. The house is quieter now, not because there is peace, but because there is absence. And you ask yourself, almost in silence, where did everyone go? They don't call like they used to. They don't visit like they once did. The days stretch long. You hear the clock, not their voices. You feel the weight of memory, not the warmth of presence. But listen to me. This silence has a reason. I am Arthur Schopenhauer. And I will not give you illusions, only truth. The kind of truth that can hurt, but can also set you free. Because after 70, life is no longer about growth. It's about revelation. And the first revelation is this: loneliness is not an accident. It is a mirror. What you feel now is not just the absence of people, it is the exposure of reality. You were never truly surrounded. You were accompanied by roles, by convenience, by necessity. But when the noise fades, what remains is what always was: yourself. Let us begin there. You may think people forgot you, but before we blame the world, we must ask, what exactly do people forget when they forget the elderly? They forget the hand that held theirs when they were children. They forget the voice that calmed them when they cried. They forget the patience that watched them fall and rise again. But do they forget because they are cruel? No. They forget because they are distracted. And that, dear listener, is worse. Cruelty is a conscious choice. Distraction is indifference, disguised as busyness. They say, I've been so busy. They say, I meant to visit, but they say, you know how life gets. I, Schopenhauer, do not accept this excuse, and neither should you. If someone mattered to you, how often would you forget them? Yet here you are, waiting, wondering, asking if you've done something wrong. Let me give you the answer. No. You didn't fail. They just moved on. And life, in its cruel design, made it easier for them to do so. After all, society trains people to worship the beginning, not the end. We celebrate births, not wisdom. We throw parties for youth, but we whisper about aging like it is shameful. And when you grow old, they no longer see your potential. They see your past. They treat your presence as an obligation, not a privilege. But I will tell you something you must never forget. You are not a burden. You are a book they have stopped reading. And that is their mistake, not your failure. Now let's speak of memory. At this age, memory becomes your companion. It is both your comfort and your torment. You remember your children when they were young. You remember birthdays, dinners, small moments of beauty. And those memories are so vivid, so alive, that their absence now feels unbearable. But listen to me. Memory is proof that you lived well. Yes, it hurts, but would you rather have nothing to miss? To feel pain for something beautiful is not weakness. It is power. It is evidence that you loved, that you built, that you mattered. And now in the silence, all of that echoes within you. But here is what most people misunderstand about old age. Old age is not decay. It is revelation. It shows you who truly cared, who stayed, who disappeared. And most importantly, who you are when no one is around. This is why I call it a test. Not because you need to prove anything to the world, no, but because the world, when it withdraws from you, reveals the truth of what you built within. Some of you are angry, some of you are sad. Some of you are ashamed to admit you are lonely. I tell you now, do not be ashamed. The world taught you that your worth depended on being useful, being seen, being needed. But I tell you, your worth has nothing to do with who shows up. It has everything to do with what still stands within you. You are still here. You are still thinking. You are still listening to a voice that dares to speak the truth. That alone is proof of strength. Let's go deeper. Do you know why people rarely return to visit the elderly? Because visiting you reminds them that they too will grow old, and they are terrified of becoming what you are now. Not because you are weak, but because you are invisible. Modern life teaches people to run from discomfort, and you, dear elder, represent a kind of discomfort that cannot be ignored. You are the future they are avoiding. They hide behind screens. They bury themselves in speed. But you sit still, you remember, and that stillness is more powerful than their distractions. You carry truths that no one wants to hear, because you have lived long enough to see through illusions. They think they are too busy, but deep down they are too afraid. Afraid that one day they too will be forgotten. Afraid that their children will do to them what they have done to you. Afraid that love fades, that attention dies, that time is not loyal, and so they don't visit, because you are a mirror. And the image they see frightens them. But I say again, this is not your fault. It is the nature of a world that values noise over depth, speed over meaning, youth over truth. So what must you do now? You must stop waiting. Not because you are bitter, but because you are wise. Stop waiting for the knock on the door. Start listening to the voice inside. If they come, welcome them. If they don't, honor yourself. Do not measure your worth by visits. Do not measure your life by calls returned. Measure it by what still breathes inside your chest, and what breathes is more than memory. It is clarity. You are no longer distracted. You no longer pretend. You now see who matters. You now see what endures. You now see what it means to live when no one is watching. And that is freedom. Because the greatest truth I can offer you is this: those who are most alone are often the ones who see life most clearly. You are not invisible. You are simply ahead. You are on a path most people haven't reached yet, and when they do, they will remember you. Maybe not with flowers, maybe not with visits, but with silence and guilt and questions they can no longer ask. So today I leave you with this. Do not wait to be seen. See yourself. Do not wait to be remembered. Remember who you are. You are not forgotten. You are awake. And that, my friend, is the most human thing there is. You've heard it said, time heals all wounds. But after 70 you begin to understand time does not heal. Time exposes. It uncovers what was hidden beneath the noise of youth, beneath the busyness of raising children, building careers, making plans. Now that the noise is gone, you can finally hear what was always there, your own voice. But what is that voice saying? For some it whispers regrets, for others it echoes with questions. Did I matter? Did I give too much? Why am I the one left behind? These are not weak thoughts. These are the questions of someone who has lived long enough to face what others run from. And I, Schopenhauer, tell you this: to be old is to be courageous. Not in body, but in spirit, because you are now standing in a place where illusions die and truth remains. And that truth, dear listener, is not always gentle. Let us speak of children. You raised them, fed them, wiped their tears, gave up your nights, your money, your time. And now perhaps they do not call. They do not visit. They do not seem to remember who you were before your hair turned grey. You wonder, was it all for nothing? Did I raise them wrong? The answer is more complex than blame. Children are not memory keepers. They are forward movers. The world pulls them ahead and they forget to look back. Not always out of malice, often out of blindness. But blindness still leaves others in the dark. That's where you are now, in the shadow of what you gave. You want to believe they will come, that one day they will sit beside you and say, I remember everything. But you also know perhaps they won't, and that is a grief that words cannot soothe. But I offer you something else: perspective. You are not their mistake, you are their origin, and even if they forget, even if they fail to return, they cannot erase the truth of what you gave. You are part of them, whether they acknowledge it or not. And here is the harder truth: your peace must no longer depend on their recognition. That is the trap of old age, waiting for validation from those who are too busy surviving to offer it. But you are beyond survival. You are in the stage of observation, of understanding, of final clarity. Do not wait to be thanked. Thank yourself. Look back and see the sacrifice, the effort, the love, and say, I did what I could. That is enough. Now let's talk about friends. How many are still here? Not many. Some have passed, some have disappeared. Some grew distant, slowly, like a fog that thickens until the road vanishes. This too is a test, not of your ability to socialize, but of your ability to be alone without feeling empty. Solitude is not a punishment. It is a mirror. Most fear it. But you can learn to sit with it, to breathe in its silence, to listen to what it reveals. If you are lonely now, it is not a sign of failure. It is a sign that you outlasted the noise, that you are still standing when many are not. You see, most People spend their lives running from themselves. You no longer need to run. You are exactly where you are supposed to be, at the edge of understanding. And the view from here, while quiet, is honest. Let's speak of meaning. After 70, you are told that you've done your part, that now is time to rest. But rest without meaning is not peace. It is despair. You must find a reason to keep waking up, not for them, for you. What brings you clarity? A walk, a book, a quiet moment by the window. A memory that reminds you of your strength. You do not need grand achievements now, you need small truths, moments that remind you, I am still alive, I still feel, I still matter. They may not see you, but you can see yourself. The young do not. Understand this. They chase validation, applause, attention. But you? You no longer need applause, you need honesty. That is why you're here, listening, thinking, reflecting. Let's speak of the body. It weakens. That is its nature. Pain becomes a companion. Tasks once simple now require planning, effort, rest. But I tell you, do not measure your worth by your strength. Measure it by your presence. Your body is not who you are. It is the vessel of your history. Every wrinkle, a lesson. Every scar, a story. You are not decaying. You are revealing. And in this revelation there is beauty. Let the world chase youth. You, my friend, are chasing truth. And truth is timeless. Let's return to visits, or rather the lack of them. They may come on holidays, or not at all. They may send messages, or forget entirely. You stare at the door sometimes, wondering if it will open. But today, I ask you to stop waiting. Not because no one cares, but because waiting steals your present. This moment, right now, is yours, not theirs. Not yesterday's. Yours. And in this moment, you can choose to dwell in absence, or to dwell in awareness. Choose awareness. Be aware of the air you breathe, the thoughts that pass, the memories that visit when people do not. Be aware of your own resilience, of how many storms you've survived, of how many times you were alone and still continued. That is your power. You do not need to be seen to exist. You do not need to be visited to be valuable. You are not forgotten. You are remembering, and in remembering you are alive. Now let's speak of forgiveness, not for them, for yourself. Forgive yourself for the mistakes, for the things left unsaid, for the times you gave too much, or not enough, for the moments you feel ashamed of. You are not perfect, but you were present, and that in a world of distractions is rare. Forgive yourself for feeling lonely. It does not mean you are weak. It means you are honest. Forgive yourself for still hoping. Hope is not foolish. It is human. You are allowed to miss them. You are allowed to wish they called, but do not let that wish define you. You are more than who comes and goes. You are the constant, the still point, the soul at the center of your story. And this story, your story, is not over. Not yet. You are still writing. With each breath, each thought, each moment of reflection, you are writing the final chapter, and it can be filled with wisdom, not bitterness, with clarity, not resentment, with peace, not regret. They may not come. That is their journey. But you can still arrive to yourself. Arrive at a place where being alone is not emptiness, but presence, where silence is not absence, but truth, where aging is not decline, but awakening. So breathe. Sit with yourself. Listen to what your soul is trying to say. You've spent a lifetime giving. Now give to yourself. Give yourself patience, understanding, grace. And when the sun rises tomorrow, rise with it. Not for anyone else. For you. You are not waiting anymore. You are living. That is the lesson. And that is enough. It is enough. There is a certain hour of the day when the house feels heavier. Not because of its walls or its furniture, but because of the memories that float through the air. The hour when the light fades through the curtains and shadows grow longer. And in that moment, you feel the presence of everything that is no longer here. The laugh of a child that once ran through the hall, the sound of plates during dinner, the quiet voice of a spouse asking, "Did you sleep well?" That hour, my friend, is not about sadness. It is about truth. And the truth is this: You are not missing people. You are missing a time, a chapter, one that closed without warning. And now you sit at the edge of that chapter, rereading pages that no one else remembers. I, Schopenhauer, will not lie to you. Time moves forward. Not because it is cruel, but because it has no memory. It carries everyone along. Some hold on to the past, others run from it, but you are here living inside it. This is both a blessing and a burden. Let's speak of that burden. It's the burden of knowing, the burden of watching the world. Forget things you swore would never be lost. You remember birthdays, details, smells, silences, but no one asks you about them. They assume you've forgotten, that your mind is fading. But you haven't forgotten, you've refined, you know what matters. And that terrifies them, because you see through everything now, through fake concern, through polite excuses, through the rituals they perform when they want to appear kind. And yet you still greet them with warmth, not because they deserve it, but because you are bigger than their absence. You've become a vessel of patience, a holder of stories. A library no one visits anymore, but that still holds the wisdom of generations they forgot. But you still hold it. That is power. Now let's talk about resentment. It is easy to fall into it. You hear the silence, and it stings. You see their lives continue without you, and it feels like betrayal. But resentment is a poison that disguises itself as strength. It tells you, be cold, protect yourself, but in truth it isolates you further. So what should you do? Do not resent but observe. Do not curse them and understand them. They are lost in a world that praises productivity over presence, performance, over connection. They are not cruel, they are disconnected. But you are awake, you are watching. You are the observer of life's final lessons. This is not weakness, this is enlightenment. Most people never get here. Most die while still distracted. But you are seeing things as they are. That is sacred. Let's speak of conversation. How many times do you speak in a day? To whom? The mailman, the television, yourself? Many days the words stay inside, unspoken, heavy. But I say, speak anyway. Speak your truth, even if no one responds. Talk to the air. Talk to the past. Talk to yourself. You deserve to be heard, even if only by your own ears. And know this, the soul hears, the soul records. The words you speak in solitude still matter. They shape your inner landscape. And that landscape now more than ever deserves beauty. Do not allow it to be filled with regret and bitterness. Fill it with acceptance, with gratitude for the moments you did have, with stories only you can carry. Because here is the hardest truth. Many will forget you, but you must not forget yourself. Repeat your name. Repeat your value. Remember your journey. You were not just a mother or a father or a spouse. You were a force, a witness to history, a builder of lives, a teacher without recognition, a soul who endured. And that counts for more than applause. That is legacy. Let's speak of guilt. Many elderly people carry it like a stone in their chest. Guilt for the things they could not give, for the anger they showed, for the moments they were too tired to play, for the dreams they buried. I say this to you. You did your best. You gave what you had. And if you failed, it was human. Forgiveness is not for others. It is for you. Place your hand on your heart and whisper, I release it. You deserve peace, not just at the end, but now. You deserve to sit in your home without judgment, without shame, without should-haves and could-haves echoing in your thoughts. You are enough as you are. You have always been. Let's now speak of fear. The fear that no one will remember you, that after you are gone your name will fade, your voice will vanish, that your photos will sit in a box no one opens, that your birthday will pass without a single candle lit in your name. But I offer you this. You are not your memory in others. You are your impact in the invisible. Every kind word you ever spoke lives on. Every sacrifice you made shaped someone's life. Every tear you wiped changed the course of someone's day. You planted seeds. Some you saw grow. Others bloomed in silence. That is what lives on. Not always visible, but eternal. That is what we philosophers call unseen influence. And that is far greater than recognition. Let's speak of purpose. You may think purpose ends with retirement, with an empty home, with silence. But purpose is not a job, it is a reason to wake up, and that reason can be simple. To water the plant in the window, to feed the birds outside, to smile at the nurse. To sit with your breath and feel it. Do not underestimate the power of existing with presence. It changes the energy around you. The world may not notice, but life does. And life, my friend, is watching. Let's speak of death. Not with fear, with reverence. You are closer to the end than the beginning. That is not a tragedy. It is a privilege. You have been given time, more than many. And with that time, you can choose how to finish your story. Will it be bitter or will it be wise? Will it be angry or will it be peaceful? The ending matters, but not to others, to you. You write the final lines. Make them true. Make them yours. And know this, the soul does not fear death. It fears being unlived. You are still alive. Live then. Live gently. Live thoughtfully. Live for yourself. Because at this stage, life is no longer about proving. It is about being. And being, fully and honestly, is the greatest act of all. Let's speak of beauty. Not in the mirror, in the soul. You may not recognize your reflection, but your essence, it has never been clearer. You are light wrapped in history. You are wisdom in motion. You are what the world will one day wish it had listened to more. Do not dim yourself. Do not apologize for your pace. Do not hide your thoughts because they are old-fashioned. You are the foundation, the root, the source, and you deserve to feel beautiful, not by the world's standards, but by your own truth. So breathe in deeply and say this, I am still here and I still matter. Say it every day. Let it be your morning prayer. Let it be your final thought at night. Because as long as that breath is in you, so is purpose, so is presence, so is power. This is not the end. This is the part they never warned you about, the most honest, most sacred, most real part of life. And now that you are here, embrace it. Be who you are, not for them, for you. There is a peculiar silence that fills the room after the last goodbye. Not the kind of silence that follows a moment, but the kind that settles like dust. It is the silence of endings. And if you are still here, listening, it means you have survived many of them. The end of conversations, the end of routines, the end of being needed in the same way. But let me tell you something. Not all endings are losses. Some are revelations. And in old age, you begin to realize that what left you was not meant to stay. And what stayed is what truly matters. I, Schopenhauer, have said before that life swings like a pendulum between pain and boredom. But in the final chapters, it swings differently, between memory and meaning. Memory reminds you of what was. Meaning asks you, what do I do now with what I know? And that question is the key to everything. You have knowledge that cannot be Googled. You carry feelings that cannot be tweeted. You've lived decades that no filter can beautify, because they were already real. And now, in your solitude, you are being asked, what will you do with all this truth? The world won't ask you directly. The phone won't ring and demand your wisdom. But that does not mean it isn't needed. Your presence alone carries a weight. The quiet dignity of someone who has endured, lost, waited, and still breathes. That presence, even if ignored, changes the energy of the world. But I know it hurts. You sit in a house built for many, now lived in by one. You hear footsteps in your memory more clearly than footsteps in the hallway, and sometimes you feel invisible. But let me offer you a shift. You are not invisible. You are simply not being seen by the blind. Do not confuse neglect with absence of value. There are people who walk past art every day and never notice. That does not make the art less powerful. It only reveals the viewer's limitations. So, do not measure your worth by how often they visit. Measure it by how clearly you see now. Let's talk about what you see. You see through the politeness, through the surface smiles. You can tell when someone is present and when someone is pretending. That ability, that insight, is the reward of age. The young think they know, you actually do. So why do you feel so forgotten? Because society is obsessed with beginnings. It adores the new, the fast, the loud. You, my friend, are none of these. You are old, you are slow, you are quiet, and that is why you are powerful. In your silence, you witness what others miss. In your stillness, you catch the details that race escapes. In your solitude, you remember what connection truly means. You no longer chase, you no longer beg, you observe, you feel, and that is why your wisdom, though uninvited, is more necessary than ever. They don't visit not because you lack value, but because they fear the reflection you provide. You represent a truth they are not ready for, that time passes, that attention fades, that love is not always enough, and you are the proof. But I urge you, do not resent them for their absence. Pity them for their fear. And be gentle with yourself, because you carry the scars of decades, and yet you are still soft enough to feel. That softness is not weakness, it is grace. Now let's speak of grace. Grace is the ability to be kind when you are in pain, to forgive when you remember, to love when you are not loved in return. You, elder soul, are full of grace. You have faced birthdays alone and still smiled. You have eaten dinner in silence and still blessed the food. You have waited for calls that never came and still wished them well. That is grace. And that grace makes you noble, not in title, in essence. You are the unsung royalty of this world, not because you are worshipped, but because you are wise. Your throne may be a simple chair. Your crown may be silver hair, but your power is undeniable, and it shows not in dominance, but in dignity. Let's talk now about waiting. You've waited long enough. For visits, for recognition, for someone to say thank you. But the time for waiting is over. Now is the time for living. Not the kind of living the world defines it with adventure, photos, and noise, but the kind of living that matters, inner living, deep breathing, honest reflection, presence without distraction. That is the gift of old age. You no longer need to perform. You no longer need to pretend. You have nothing to prove, only things to understand. So understand this: you are still worthy of joy. You are still capable of peace. You are still deserving of love, even if it comes from within. And perhaps that is the love that lasts. Let's speak of daily life. The small routines, the rituals, the things others find boring but you now find sacred. The tea in the morning, the sound of birds, the feel of sunlight on your skin. These are not trivial. These are the moments that remind you, I am still here. And each one is a blessing, not because it is loud, but because it is real. The real is often silent. The real is often unnoticed. But you have learned to notice, to appreciate, to feel. That is a mastery most will never know. Let's speak of silence. You know it well. It greets you in the morning. It sleeps beside you at night. It follows you through empty rooms and echoes through memories. But silence is not your enemy. It is your mirror. It reflects your thoughts, your fears, your hopes. It shows you what remains when everything else is gone. And what remains is you remain. Through loss, through absence, through change, you remain, and in that there is power. So embrace the silence, do not fear it. Fill it with gratitude, with breath, with awareness. It is not the absence of life, it is the container of it. Let's end with one final truth. You are not waiting for anyone anymore. You are walking yourself home, not to a place, but to a state of being, a place where peace is not something given by others, but something awakened within. That is your destination. That is your gift, and you are almost there. You have walked far, longer than most. You have seen seasons change, people change, and now life itself changing its rhythm. This final part is not about sadness. It is not even about loneliness. It is about realization. I, Schopenhauer, have told you, truth is rarely pleasant, but it is always liberating. And here, at this point in your life, what matters is not what was taken, but what was revealed. Let us begin with the great myth that old age is a waiting room, waiting for death, waiting for visitors, waiting for purpose to return. But I ask you to look closer. What if this stage, this silence, this stillness is not waiting but awakening? For the first time you are no longer running, no longer chasing, no longer distracted by what others want from you. You are free to see. And what do you see? You see who stayed. You see who disappeared. But most of all, you see yourself. Not as others defined you, not as the roles you played, but as a soul, bare, honest, awake. This is the final gift of life, the chance to return to yourself. So let's begin there. Let's speak of return. To your childhood, your memories, your regrets, your joys. They all return now, not to punish you, but to complete you. Nothing was wasted, not even the mistakes. They made you slower to judge, quicker to listen, gentler in your strength. That is not weakness, that is maturity. And maturity, my friend, is the most underrated wisdom of our time. You've become the lighthouse others ignore until the storm comes. And even if no one sails to you, your light still shines. Because it must, because it is who you are. Let's speak of forgiveness. You've carried names in your heart that bring pain, situations that never found closure, people who left you with more questions than answers. I ask you, what do you gain by holding them? Let them go. Not because they deserve it, but because you do. You deserve space, peace, a heart not weighed down by the failures of others. And if the only closure you get is silence, let that be enough. Do not wait for apologies. Sometimes silence is the only truth people have left, and sometimes you must build your peace on that. Let's talk now about self-worth. For decades, you were needed as a parent, as a worker, as a spouse. Now perhaps you are no longer needed in the same way, and that shift can feel like erasure. But understand this, value does not come from function. It comes from being. A flower is not useful, yet we admire it. A sunset does not solve problems, yet it moves us. You are no longer a tool, you are a presence, and presence, my friend, is sacred. Just by existing, by sitting with yourself in full awareness, you are doing something extraordinary. In a world that cannot sit still, you sit. In a world afraid of silence, you listen. In a world that rushes past truth, you hold it. That is worth more than applause. That is real legacy. Let's speak of death. Not to fear it, but to respect it. Death is not the enemy. Forgetfulness is. Dying is natural. Being forgotten while still alive, that is cruelty. But let me tell you something that no one else will. You are not forgotten. You are simply not spoken of. But silence does not erase you, it only hides you. You exist. Every wrinkle on your face is a sentence in a story they may never read. But the story remains. You have touched lives. Maybe they didn't thank you. Maybe they forgot. But their lives carry your fingerprints. And that cannot be erased. Not by silence, not by time. Let's speak now of legacy. Many believe legacy is what you leave behind. But I say, legacy is what you embody while still alive. Your eyes still open, your breath still present, your thoughts still moving. That is legacy. To be old and still curious, to be tired and still kind, to be alone and still loving. That is your legacy. And it will echo long after you are gone, in gestures, in habits, in quiet lessons passed down without notice. You do not need statues. You need peace. Let's speak of endings. You may be near yours or not. But either way, you are closer than before. That is not a reason to fear. It is a reason to live deeper. To look at the sky and say, I was here. To look at your reflection and say, I forgive you. To look at your memories and say, thank you. That is how you end well, not with regret, but with reverence. Reverence for having walked through storms and still arriving at yourself. Reverence for the fact that even if no one visits, you visited yourself. You stayed. You endured. You remembered. You mattered. Let me say that again. You mattered. You matter. You always will. And in your silence, your softness, your slowness, you are more alive than ever. Because now you see clearly. You know who you are. And no absence can take that from you. So breathe. Sit with this truth. You have nothing left to prove, nothing left to earn. Only yourself to meet, fully. And that, at last, is what this silence has always been preparing you for. The return to yourself. The recognition of your own soul. So when no one visits, visit your memories. When no one calls, call your name. When no one thanks you, thank yourself. You are not waiting. You are arriving. At peace. At truth. At the quiet, powerful center of your own being. That is the gift. That is the point, that is the end, and it is beautiful.